Connor Daly, 219.72 miles per hour.
So that's
my understanding is that one doesn't count.
correct. That is too quick.
Yep. Back it down.
You were talking about backing guys down?
He's never had a car like this here before. No. I'm going, son.
Right.
And he doesn't look to be slowing down here, as some of the other drivers definitely are slowing down to meet their target in rookie orientation.
Connor's thought might be, I'll go ahead and finish up ROP in a couple of weeks. I want to learn something about the car right now before it starts raining.
That's actually a good point, Kevin.
You might not be wrong about that. Let's see what this next lap is for Connor Daly.
And as you said too, the predictive lap time allows you to lift at the finish, so I'm thinking you're just running your lap until you get back on the main straightaway. Go ahead and lift a little bit there to try to take off some lap time. And that's going back to the old days when you're trying not to show everyone what you have.
Right. Don't you think, Anders, at some point, these race cars, you go, okay, go out and run 10 laps over 215 miles an hour, and that's all you get.
You just do it. You just took the words out of my mouth. I do think that the rookie orientation procedure can maybe be updated slightly to not just the way these cars drive, but also when you look at the level of drivers that come in these days, they're all ultra professional, world-class drivers, and so I don't necessarily think that they need all those stages. Maybe it's a bit more like, okay, you need to first do 10 laps without anyone else around you. Or maybe you need to do 2-3 laps on the warm-up lane just to like get the feel, and maybe it's just a slightly rethought rookie orientation process. I agree with you.
And I think it's challenging to do this with other cars on track. It's a lot easier to maintain that speed by yourself. When you're out there in traffic, you're trying to stay out of the way. You're now back into full race car driver mode, and let's get after it.
So right on cue, Connor Daly slows down big time at 209.4, so you can almost just see him like
But does that count? Because that's under 210.
Oh, good point.
Poor Connor.
Yeah. Connor, you got to look at your dash.
Yeah.
So Rosenquist in the blue car, Daly behind him with that green helmet. Dark gray car. So you see Daly, Castroneves, Hildebrand, Herta, Rosenquist, Servia, Ericsson, and Ferrucci on track, and Alonso the 9th with the mechanical issue, the total battery, came sputtering to a stop at turn number 2.
So that's Connor doing a 205.5.
He needs a 210.
I
did a Gordy Johncock.
210.
He needs 210, right? Gordy Johncock, sorry. I hope you're listening, Gordy, because I'm going to see you here in a couple weeks.
Do you think Gordy watches streaming on the internet?
I think his wife, Sue, can line him up, and he's got the volume turned up to 50. And if he's not at the pulp mill, he likes to watch the cars. And he always says, hey, how come I haven't seen the girl lately? I said, she retired, Gordon, Danica. He was a big Danica Patrick fan, but he never called her Danica. How come the girl's not running anymore? Well, she retired.
So he doesn't do a ton of interviews. And I had a fantastic conversation with him when he was back. Maybe it was in 2002 or possibly 2007. It was either a 20th anniversary of the 82 win or a 25th, and sat down and talked with him on our long-form coverage on WIBC for 10 or 15 minutes, and he revisited the final laps of that duel with Rick Mears, and I wish I would have saved the tape because it was just fantastic.
I know. Gordy he's a wonderful guy. He's a fabulous race driver. But he's a fan at heart. He's a big fan. He broke his ankle once, so I watched the race with him on the roof of Milwaukee, and he was hitting me on the shoulder. Look, did you see that? I mean, this guy's one of the best drivers in the series, and he was just a big fired up to watch the race.
So Connor Daly now starting to find his pace. 210. I almost said 2:10 there. So same as you. So 210.43. So that's within range here. Is still working on Fernando Alonso's car here.
The engine is fired, so that's good news.
So that basically answers the question about where the placement of the electronics is. So
you had it right. Side pod, right?
I would have thought it would be further forward, so I wonder if there could potentially be another, maybe it's a gear actuator or something like that's been jammed on that car, because I doubt they would have placed the battery that far back. So clearly I need an IndyCar tutorial. I need to walk down to the garages and have one of these engineers point out exactly where everything is. But but that far back by the engine and behind the exhaust, yeah, you would think that it's something to do with the gear actuator.
Because you wouldn't want the battery back there with all that heat.
That is correct.
Even I figured that out.
That is correct.
Even I figured that out.
Elio's last lap 2:14, then a 2:11, so he's within the parameters at the moment to tick off and click off the checklist for the refresher course. J.R. Hildebrand in that number 48 car, he had 66. That's no longer available. 48, a pretty special number for him and so many, Robin.
Well, I think it's such a nice tribute to Dan Gurney and his family and All-American racers. And, every day on Facebook, Anders, the only reason I'm on Facebook is for all the old racing pictures. And there's at least 5 or 10 postings every day of Dan Gurney fans. A picture from Dan, when he's driving a Can-Am car, Formula 1 car, and IndyCar. And his legacy will always live with us because he was what racing was all about. Taking a chance, trying it his way, and no thanks. I used to taste it. Gosh, I wish you wouldn't had a, the Gurney Westlake. I wish you just had a Cosworth like everybody else. You didn't want all those races. He goes, why would I do that?
And don't forget, his name synonymous with one of the most commonly known aerodynamics aids in racing, the Gurney flap.
Yes.
I mean, think about it. Just about every race car around the planet in some way, shape, or form has that 90-degree diagonal or that 90-degree angle at the rear leading edge of a front or rear wing, and that was invented by Dan Gurney.
And one of the great stories is when they're testing at Phoenix and Bobby Unser's getting frustrated and he told Dan, "You're so smart, figure this out, do something." So Dan went,
So he did.
this little thing, and Unser went out and ran a couple of laps and he came and he goes, "Is anybody timing this?" And Gurney's like, "I don't know, there's nobody else here." He goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "I was going so fast through the corners, I could barely hold the throttle down."
And actually, speaking of Gurney flap, you can see that on the right front part of Colton Herta's wing. So it's on the outer edge towards where the end plate is. So just a little bit of a carbon fiber piece, and it's a 90-degree angle. And what that does, in a similar way to the wing extension we saw earlier on James Hinchcliffe's car, is it creates a vortex at the top of the wing in a high pressure zone that helps the air stay attached to the bottom of the wing more, generates a bit more downforce, also helps a little bit mitigate that turbulent air from the car ahead. And you have to think that's something that he designed that many years ago and has virtually gone unchanged ever since.
On the fly, just went over to the truck and got a piece of aluminum, a strip of aluminum, and they bent it and just put, tacked it on the rear wing.
Absolutely.
Bobby Unser's like, "Did anybody see that? Oh my God, what did you do?" Think about how cool that had to be. It's like Parnelli testing the turbine at Phoenix, and he's like, "Okay, I don't think I'm kidding myself here, but I don't know what this is, but I like it."
So there's a good look underneath the skin of Fernando Alonso's car. Look at how neatly packaged everything is there behind the radiator.
You're right, brother. That ain't the battery.
No. So
That's a shame.
they're looking at something kind of just behind where the turbocharger and the exhaust is, which typically I wouldn't think you would have any major electronic components that far back that's receiving so much heat. So hopefully we'll get a bit more direction from them. But this got to be for Fernando just to sit there in the car and wait. That's a terrible feeling.
This is a significant moment, not just because the two-time world champion is returning in his quest for the Triple Crown, but McLaren, yes, they were a partner with Andretti, but that was more of a sponsorship in some ways 2 years ago. They are the entrant. They are the lead entrant for the first time in many, many years, and that has significance for McLaren returning in full force to the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah. And Zach Brown's made no secret that they want to run full-time sometime, and I think it's going to happen because they could probably take their per diem that they use in Formula 1 to run an IndyCar, could they not?
Let's go down to pit lane and Katie.
Well, Kevin, the initial symptoms looked as if it was a low battery for Fernando Alonso, but like you guys have seen the past few minutes, they do have that rear cowling off of the number 66 and checking everything in the back of Fernando Alonso's car. So I just checked in with the team once again, and they said they're now changing out all the software systems for the car. So it looks like it's going to be quite a while longer until they can diagnose exactly what's wrong with the 66.
I think that might have been the hope that it was simply a battery.
Yeah, exactly.
That's much easier to deal with.
Yeah, and the problem when you start changing out these electronics, if you don't find something in the gear actuator, the ECU of the engine, or anything like that, then suddenly you have to start into replacing the entire loom inside the car, and that basically requires you to take the entire car apart. So that would mean basically he wouldn't be on track at all today. So hopefully for them that's not the case.
So even when they're limited by speed, the Andretti's work together. Connor Daly and Colton Herta, nose to tail.
Yep.
And again, I know Colton Herta is not, and people are looking at the entry list. Wait a minute, that's Harding Steinbrenner Racing. They are supported by Andretti Technologies, so that's engineering information, that's dampers, springs, setup help. His dad is a co-entrant of one of the Andretti Autosport teams. He drove on their Indy Lights program before, so yeah, Colton has pretty strong relationships.
Well, and I think that the biggest benefit that Harding Steinbrenner have from this alignment with Andretti Autosport is direct access to Andretti's damper program. That is honestly where the magic is with that program. Yeah, it's access to their data, but it's access to everything that they're driving on an everyday with their damper program. That's absolutely huge.
I asked Brian Barnhart, I said, who's your shot guy? Because we don't have a shot guy. They bring, the Andretti boys bring over the shots, and damn it, we bowl them on and don't ask any questions.
That's smart.
Very smart.
Yeah.
By the way, Colton Herta has completed phase number 1 of rookie orientation, moving on to phase 2. That's why he's keeping pace with Connor Daly in the 210-plus mile-per-hour range, 211.9. The last speed for Connor Daly, and for Herta, 213.2, chasing him behind in that white car for Harding Steinbrenner Racing. And for those joining us on the worldwide stream, you may be familiar with the grandfather of one of the co-owners. I think that George Steinbrenner is a name that may even resonate in Europe, the legendary late owner of the New York Yankees. Well, his grandson, George Michael Steinbrenner IV, has had a love for racing and has had many family associations with racing. Well, he got involved in partnership with Michael Andretti for an Indy Lights program with Colton Herta a few years ago, and he's still 22, 23 years old, and he is the co-owner of this program with Mike Harding.
And wants to do this for the rest of his life, which is exactly what we need. More young owners that have enthusiasm.
He's got a burning passion for him. I actually remember interviewing himself, George the Fifth, and Colton Herta together for an NBC Sports Paddock Pass feature back when they were first into Indy Lights, and just kind of talking about, well, how crazy is this, youngest driver and owner combination in the paddock, and at the time, I mean, much younger. They still look young, but they looked even younger than they do now, and they were both set on, nope, we're going to IndyCar together. No questions asked, they were going to IndyCar together. And here they are, already won a race, onward trajectory, looking really, really good. Yeah, it's going to be amazing to see this combo.
And the reason he may not be a driver, he said, well, one, I always like the business aspect of things. Tony Renna, the late Tony Renna, who died here in a crash testing for Ganassi in 2003, is a cousin. And so that was an association, and maybe that soured him on the driving part when he was a little kid, but I think he always gravitated to the business side of things. His stepfather is Sean Jones, who is a driver and has been involved in ownership, has been around the paddock forever. They've known Brian Herta and have had relationships there. His uncle is Chris Simmons, a former Indy Lights driver who's the engineer for Scott Dixon. So this is not just a passing fancy. It's in George Michael Steinbrenner IV's blood. And like Andrew said, this is where he wants to be. And just such a polite and enthusiastic young guy. And even in the 3 or 4 years that we've known him, we've seen how much he's matured and grown, and is great at speaking in front of crowds, great with the media. So bright future for him and that team.
And I just got to think, Kevin, that Hank Steinbrenner, his father, they haven't found it yet. They're going to find a gold mine. They're going to find a really good sponsor for this one.
That's the hope.
Yep.
And the hope is in winning early, and that did help them find some sponsorship that they didn't have for a couple of races. But the hope is that this story, and it is a good story. Think about this. This is a 19-year-old. We're getting ahead of ourselves because they've been on the track for 15 minutes. But he's in a car that's good. He's potentially going to be a contender on race day.
Absolutely.
I absolutely think he will be, and it'll be all about execution, because I agree with you. The equipment will not be the problem. I think it'll just be all in execution. If they execute similar to what they did at Circuit of the Americas, he'll be in great shape. If they have a few fumbles like they did at Long Beach, obviously that might not be the case. So everything just has to be right on that one day. And another person that wants to find that is on the screen right here. Marcus Ericsson getting his first taste of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. His last lap at 2:08.6. His fastest lap at 2:09.8. So still just kind of getting up to speed here with phase one.
That's in the guidelines. He's not supposed to be above 210, so he's right on the program, and he's coming to pit lane, so maybe he has completed phase number 1, which is 10 laps.
Then typically you'll see them come into pit lane, check the car over, put a new set of tires on, and then go out for stage number 2 of his rookie orientation. So well on his way here, and probably it'd be a treat to be able to sit in on the radio when these guys come into pit lane for the first time after experiencing this track. It's got to be phenomenal. Sounds like might have some rain on the track because J.R. Hildebrand just darted off the track.
I was going to say, he was right in the groove and just pulled right
super quickly darted off the track. So
or something.
Yeah.
He's got another issue because he's coasting and he may not make it back. This isn't rain, so we're going to have to see a yellow flag to go collect J.R. Hildebrand.
Remember what we talked about some 3 hours ago with kind of how they have much less horsepower now than they did in years past, but they're getting better speed. Look at how far he's able to roll here under no power. Think about how little rolling resistance there is and how much work there's been done to the gearbox, to the bearings and everything for him to essentially roll for a full mile after the engine shut off, and the fact that only just now did it pull the car off to the side. I mean, these things, if you walk up to one of these cars, you can push it with one finger and it'll roll away from you. That is how little rolling resistance there is.
Santino Ferrucci and Marcus Ericsson have completed phase 1, joining Colton Herta. And that is our group of rookies, correct? Felix Rosenquist. So we're still waiting for Felix Rosenquist, or at least for notification that he has completed phase number 1. So those are the 4 rookies on track here today. And then there are others that will need to complete rookie orientation on the Tuesday that the track will open. And that would include Patricio Award, Jordan King, and Ben Hanley. 7 rookies entered in this year's 500.
And it's a strong crop.
Yes, it is.
It is such a strong crop. There really is no bad driver in there, and this guy in the shop,
had flashes of brilliance this
he
year.
really has done. Yeah, I've been very impressed with his whole mindset. I even like the fact of how angry he was at himself at Long Beach when he stalled the car. I mean, you can just tell this is a guy that puts so much pressure on himself to perform, even in his full rookie season. I think he's got a lot of promise.
You know something else? He came in with his baggage. Oh, he's a bad actor from Europe, this guy. Why give him a chance? Blah, blah, blah. I don't think I've been anybody more delightful in the last couple of years as far as just being polite and optimistic and enthusiastic about this whole situation. So, you know, and by the way, he is an American, folks.
Yep.
From Connecticut.
From Connecticut.
By the way, we all deserve second chances, especially when we're 18 or 19 years old.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine the things that we did and said at 18 and 19? Luckily, no one was paying attention.
I'd already been fired at the Star by the time I was 21, I think. Can't remember. Maybe not.
No, I completely agree, and everything he's said and done so far has been of a class act, and completely agree with you. Everyone deserves a second chance. So far, he's done nothing to prove us wrong, I'm big fan of what he's doing so far, and hoping he gets through rookie orientation here, and then off he goes.
Yeah. Michael Cannon speaks highly of him. That's my yardstick.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael's his engineer. Michael's been around a long time, and he said, oh, this kid's got some talent, brother. He's got some talent. Keep your eye on him.
And so does J.R. Hildebrand. He has established a second career for himself as a May-only driver. And, you know, J.R. is one of those guys that he doesn't need to be a race car driver. He was on his way to MIT and deferred that because he was having a successful junior Formula driving career and made it to IndyCars at a fairly young age, and still I think would have an interest in being full-time, but he's got plenty of other interest and plenty of other ways to make a living. Just so happens that he drives in the biggest race in the world and still is competitive and could win the thing.
And does really well here just about every time. And Kevin, I remember when I worked at Speed, he wrote a little column once and sent it to me, and I'm like, can we run this? And he goes, well, if you want to. I mean, he's really a good writer. He teaches a course at Stanford. I mean, he's probably too smart to be a race driver. No offense.
I listened to him speak at a banquet when he was maybe 17 years old and was just blown away at his maturity.
Think about, he won everything in Formula Fords all the way up to he won in everything.
Yeah.
And then, there was a time there with Panther, their road course program wasn't very good, and it held Dan Weldon back. It held him back. So I think maybe he didn't. People say, well, he got an opportunity, he got a chance. Well, he did, and then Ed gave him a chance. But there's something about him in Indianapolis that it doesn't matter what car or team he drives for, he always does a good job here.
Well, and I think also part of that is attributed to the fact that he because he's got that engineering mind, I think he's got a very good perspective of how do I set this car up? What do I need from the car? And Indianapolis Motor Speedway is so much about not what can I do as a driver to haul the last 10th out, what can I ask for the car, and how can I drive differently to suit the car? And so I think from that perspective, that's helped him tremendously. And I think secondly, he's a very, very smooth driver behind the wheel, and so there are definitely times with the old IndyCar, that definitely required some manhandling and being extremely aggressive on the wheel, where that maybe wasn't so well suited to his driving style. So I think it was probably a combination of Panther putting all their eggs in the Indy 500 basket and not developing the car for anything else, but also I think a little bit kind of that driving style maybe not meshing 100% with what he was looking for.
This is the rookie orientation portion of the open test day, preparations for next month's Indianapolis 500, and 9 cars today are eligible in this session. They are rookies, and it's not all of the rookies, but 4 of the 7 rookies and veterans. Earlier, we saw a disjointed 2-hour session with a 4-hour stoppage approximately for rain after a brief start at 11 a.m. and then a good green hour and 15 minutes in the late afternoon that was topped by Takuma Sato, 226.993 miles per hour in the session. For veterans, Ed Carpenter was next, 226.414 as we go green again. Watch Elio Castroneves work up the speed on his outlap. Spencer Pigot was third quick, 226.3. Will Power fourth, 226.2. Ryan Hunter-Reay fifth, 225.9. There were 9 over 225. The engine manufacturer breakdown was Honda, Chevy, Honda, Chevy, Honda, the top 10. So split up, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Hondas, 5 Chevys. And how many teams did we see in that top 10? We have Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, Ed Carpenter Racing, Team Penske, Andretti Autosports, Chip Ganassi Racing. That's in the top 6. If you go out through the top 10, you can add Dale Coyne Racing. And that's it. So 6 teams out of the top 10. Pretty good disparity here in the early going.
Yeah, it really is. And just got a note here from our friend Jan Beekes, and he speculates, as we talked about, that it's probably a gear actuator at the back of the car of Fernando Alonso, which could take a bit of time. So hoping for him that he gets back out before the end of the session, but that can be a bit of a costly or timely repair, should I say.
Jan's another one of those guys who's probably too smart to be a race driver. He knows way too much about mechanics, physics, and all that stuff.
But now we get to benefit from that. Every week we get to hear his incredible insight.
But you know what? And I can't say this probably, but yeah, I can. Who cares? I've been fired before. ABC did not use him during the race like they should have, because he was so good at breaking down the races and telling you what the strategy was going to be. That's what people want to hear. Let the guy talk. So I think, he'll be with NBC this May, and he'll give us his advice and his expertise, and it's great.
Jan's probably one of those guys, maybe similar to you, Anders, that he could have pursued racing a little bit longer, but found a second career opportunity. His was fully in broadcasting and took off from there. Yours was broadcasting / driver management, driver coaching, marketing, and so forth. And
I thought he sold hot cars. You don't have the hot car, but you got rid of the hot car.
No, I still have that. It's just sort of on the down low. So thank you for broadcasting it to the world, Robin Miller.
He's been doing that to fund his comeback as a racing driver.
No, but Jan he's very analytical. It's like you talk to him, I spent like 2 hours listening to Rick Mears talk about a lap around Speedway, and I was just, afterwards I was just, wow. I mean, it was like, he was talking about how he wants the car on top of the track. He said guys used to say, well, you don't know how fast you're going to hit the wall. And Mears goes, that made him crazy. What are you talking about?
Santino Ferrucci in this black number 19 car for Dale Coyne Racing. So far in this first IndyCar season, I remember he did do 4 races last year, but so far his best start 10th at Barber Motorsports Park, and he finished 9th in his season debut at St. Petersburg, but this will be his first oval race. He raced in Europe, did not come up through the Road to Indy ladder, so he, as far as I know, has done nothing on an oval before this.
Yeah, but so far actually looking very, very good out
You
here.
like his line?
Yeah, I really like his line, and you can see it's still a bit more conservative compared to that of an Alexander Rossi or any of the experienced guys. But you kind of get this, you see kind of the preload of the tire going into the corner, dips well below the apron, probably a bit too aggressive and a bit too low for what the spotters would want to see this early. But this just means that he's comfortable with the car.
They're the sparks.
Yeah, they're the Alan McDonald sparks. So though he's not on this particular car. Part of the reason is also you can see the running in additional wicker on the back wing there. You won't see that during race week or during qualifying, but that's just to add a little bit extra downforce to give him that extra level of security, which is very smart this early in the running. You want to start with as much grip as you possibly can, and then as the driver gets more and more comfortable, you start peeling the aero off, make it lighter and lighter and lighter on its feet.
When I mentioned this is his first oval experience, simply mean this will be his first race. I think he is one of those. Just about all of the rookies, everyone but Pato Award, has done a test either in Texas or Kentucky, and I believe Ferrucci did that recently as well. So he has been in an IndyCar on an oval, but he's not raced on an oval before.
This will be a completely different beast. I mean, yeah, it is an oval, but it is unlike any other track on the planet, and so it requires a whole different view of how you set the car up, how you drive it, the lines that you take, everything, the way you approach it is just different around this place. So, yeah, this is unique, and it's always just so cool to see this fresh blood take to the track and their impressions immediately thereafter.
So in this rookie session, Helio Castroneves, fastest at 221.234. Keep in mind everyone is being held back for the moment. Connor Daly, second quick, 219.988. Jair Hildebrand, 216.641. Then Colton Herta, Santino Ferrucci, Oriol Servia, Marcus Ericsson, Felix Rosenquist. Those are the 8 up to speed. Castroneves just went to 221.373, so he's in that group now that is running laps above 215. And Anders, he did that by himself.
He did that by himself, and that would make him the fastest Chevy on the day in the no-toe speed. Because the second fastest Chevy in the previous group did a 221.2. So Helio not wasting any time getting up to speed here. This is good stuff in the yellow submarine.
The 9th car in this session, Fernando Alonso, who as soon as it went green, coasted to a stop. They are dealing with mechanical issues with Team McLaren on pit lane. And we also saw Jair Hildebrand coast to a stop and need a tow in. Katie, what do you know?
Well, Kevin, he initially came over the radio and told the team, it feels like I've run out of fuel, but the team said he had plenty of fuel in the tank to make it for those several laps to kick off his veteran refresher. Now he's back here on pit lane, as you see. Mechanic Anna Chatton is taking apart the gearbox right now. They still haven't diagnosed exactly what's going on, but it sounds like, again, much like Fernando Alonso, a much bigger issue than they initially thought.
A good reference of Anna as well, who has worked in the IndyCar community on teams for many, many years. We were talking about Jessica Mace, who's going to go over the wall for Connor Daly again this year. And then one of the others that's probably one of the most familiar faces is Kate Gundlach, who's the assistant engineer on the championship-winning car of Scott Dixon with Ganassi Racing.
Yeah, and Kate's one of those that has just, through endless hard work and true grit, worked her way into her position. I mean, when I was racing Pro Mazda, she was a junior assistant engineer for a competing Pro Mazda team, and from there just worked her way up the ladder. And I mean, all the success that she has worked you know, so hard for her, and she deserves absolutely everything that she does. And the fact that she's so highly valued by Chip Ganassi, that she is on their lead car, I mean, that speaks volumes to her mindset and how smart she is.
Yeah, she's not sitting in the back crunching numbers. She's on the timing stand within range of Chris Simmons and Mike Hull giving input. So
she is
this is a valued member of the program.
She is the one that predicts and tells them when they need to pit. Like that's, you know, these aren't small decisions. She is the one calculating the fuel, and doing all the important bits that make sure that A, they don't run out of fuel, and B, make sure that they're on the best strategy possible. So yeah.
Look at Colton Herta, running laps in the 2:13 range, working his way through the rookie orientation program. Again, phase 1, 205 to 210 miles per hour, 10 laps there. Then phase 2 is 210 to 215, and then phase 3 is 215 and above. I'm told they've buttoned up Fernando Alonso's McLaren once again, so that's a positive sign. And how positive has the weather been, considering the way it looked? You know, we wanted to see first something on track, then it was okay. Can we get the rookies out there and at least partway through the program? Mission accomplished there. We're getting close to where it's all bonus time after this.
Yep, and just think about Fernando coming over here, and Andy Brown, and Bob Fernley, and all the whole McLaren guys, and not to be able to make a lap, it's just devastating. You just got to go out. Hopefully they're going to get to at least run for 10 or 20 minutes.
Marcus Ericsson right in front in the Aero Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports car. Colton Herta makes a move on him. And Herta just did a 2:21, 2:17, so the shackles are off the 19-year-old, and he's running up to pace.
Hey, Anders, when you wouldn't, you know, you get your line going in your Indy Lights car here, you're not going to change, just because you add 30 miles an hour to a lap, you're not going to change your line when you come back in an Indy car, true?
No, you have to change it to some extent, but more of that is predicated on how the car is handling. Kind of similar to what we saw with Graham Rahal. So you would do the same thing in an Indy Lights car, where if you're too loose, you simply can't go down to the apron, or if you're too tight, you want to use every bit of the apron to make the car rotate. And I think just the precision required with your line is a lot more sensitive in an Indy car, because with an Indy Lights car, you're fairly easy flat out here, so it makes it kind of straightforward. Whereas in an Indy car, if your line isn't 100% spot on, it's difficult.
Watch out, boys. The teenager is coming through. Colton Herta, 2:22.608. I thought he was going to catch up to so that was the youngest and the oldest together on track. Yeah. Oriol Servia at 44 plus, and then barely 19-year-old Colton Herta. He dives down to pit lane for the moment, but Colton Herta, I would assume, has passed phase 2 of rookie orientation, because he's just turned out the fastest lap here of this session. 2:22.608. Earlier in the veteran segment, Takuma Sato was just shy of 227 miles per hour.
Still a bit of time to find there, but that's got to feel good on that last lap for Colton Herta, just to bang that one lap in and show, oh yeah, this feels good.
Oh yeah.
Now I want to wait and see when he comes out in his full go at this point. And at that point, is it, all right, we've got plenty of time. We don't want to show what you can, just get comfortable. We're going to run a little slower than what we ultimately can right now.
Yeah, and they're definitely going to be very conservative on all settings. I mean, for a qualifying simulation, you'll go as aggressive as you can on toes and cambers and aero and everything you can to make the car as uncomfortable as possible, but have as little rolling resistance as possible. So they will slowly just start dialing the car in step by step. And for Colton Herta, we know he's young, we know he's aggressive, so yeah, definitely could do with a word from some of the advisors in the pit stand, just to kind of take it one step at a time.
Oriol Servia not confirmed yet for the race, taking laps in the 77 car, looking to start in his 11th Indianapolis 500. So we don't have audio in our headsets, but I see the starter there is the 66 McLaren fired, I think, and hope so. Oh, I just saw the shut it down mode there up front.
So they would have fired the engine up there initially, because they had taken the umbilical cord, which basically connects the data set to, or the pit stand to the car rather. They would have probably seen something on telemetry that was slightly disconcerting, and they would have shut the engine right down again. So maybe something beyond what we were thinking about, that it could be some electrical components. Maybe it's something bigger than that.
Well, Fernando Alonso waits. And unfortunately, his latter years in Formula One saw much of a similar setting. And this is not bringing back fond memories of his final time in Formula One with a myriad of mechanical problems or just not enough pace.
No. But
that's why he enjoyed this so much, because it pace with a chance to win 2 years ago.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of fond memories, I bet you Connor Daly's going to have some fond memories today. And I think the only concern he's got is pay attention to his head as he's going down the straightaway. A lot of buffeting of that helmet. Look at how much vibration there is on his helmet as he's going down there.
Ooh.
That'll be enough to give you a headache for sure. So he's going to definitely want to do something ahead of the test in the next coming weeks to add another wicker to his helmet just to settle down that head, because inside that car, that's not him excited. That is the air buffeting like absolute crazy, and he might be pitting for that exact reason.
That was a 220.1 mile per hour lap for Connor Daly.
And he is sitting kind of high inside the cockpit. I mean, it's sort of a similar height to what we see from Graham Rahal. So
look at there.
Fernando Alonso pulling away. There we have it.
So power for the McLaren Chevrolet of Fernando Alonso. Back out for the first time in 2 years at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The quest for the Triple Crown continues.
Let's see here, just working his way up through the gears. Doesn't look like any sort of issues now, and it looked like on the previous time it was when he released the pit speed limiter where the issue made itself known, and doesn't appear to be the case this time. So hopefully good news, and wouldn't be surprised if he comes right back into pit lane here again for the opportunity for the crew to take everything off, make sure everything is okay, and then go for his refresher program. Man, there's been a lot of people that have been waiting for this moment since the DNF in the 2017 Indy 500. Man, oh man, has there been a lot of people wanting to see this again.
Alonso says, enough of that. System check done. Let's get after it.
Yeah. Well, think about the ovation he got when his car came to a rest in turn one after he'd led the laps and contended for the win. You know, he said afterwards, he said, I was overwhelmed with the response because I did not expect that.
Yeah.
And you know, even though you're a two-time world driving champion, you're in a completely different field and different people, different fans, and he won everybody over with his attitude and his performance.
Yeah. So it doesn't look like he's going to come into the pits at all. Honestly, that's very abnormal. Typically, whenever you have a mechanical issue, you always come straight in after an outlap, again, just to check everything over. But yeah, they must be feeling pretty confident that all these potential issues are out of the way.
Either that or saying pit, 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 and he just turned it off. Probably.
I'm not coming in. You might find something wrong.
Yeah, I sit here for an hour and a half. I'm not coming in.
Working his way up to speed, 189.6 miles per hour, and now he will dip down low to signal that he will come in this time and allow Felix Rosenqvist to go by him. But enough to at least get a little feel and make sure everything is bolted down. So that was more than just your typical install lap. Not full speed, but getting there.
Yeah, he did a 189.665 there on his last lap as Felix Rosenqvist continues his progress. 209.9 on his last lap, and crossed the line there. He goes 214.3.
And he's already done 39 laps in this session. Same number as Colton Herta. Castroneves has done 32. Connor Daly, 37. Hildebrand, 19. He had the mechanical and the toe-in. Santino Ferrucci, 34. Oriol Servia, 28. Marcus Ericsson, 31.
Let's See here, Felix Rosenqvist's line is looking better and better every single lap here. You can see he's kind of flirting with that white line at the bottom of the track. He's starting to track up a bit higher on corner entry, and so yeah, you can really see he's starting to get comfortable with this place, and that is a magical feeling.
2:15.549 last time around for Rosenqvist, right just about square with his top speed as we watch Alonso and the McLaren team go to work on pit lane.
So I wouldn't be too worried about that smoke. That right there is just coming out of the front brake calipers. So what that is they basically block off all the ducting to make the car as aerodynamic as possible on these super speedways. So it just means that there's not a lot of ventilation coming to the front brakes. But the more concerning issue for them is the fact that they're going straight back to the back of the car to have a look at everything there. So hopefully for them, again, checking everything over, but could potentially be, again, a slightly larger issue.
I still wish we had the apron, boys. The old apron was wonderful.
You know, we just had a question on Twitter about getting our thoughts on bringing back the old apron, and from a racing perspective, I guess I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I just think from an impact perspective, the angle of attack that the cars would crash whenever you had that much area from the moment of essentially spinning the car to the way you would hit the wall was always just so vicious around there.
Well, that was kind of a wives' tale, I think. I think that's what they bought. I think that was a theory, but a couple people that seem to know a lot about safety kind of dismissed that as, But I'll tell you what, Michael Andretti and Rick Mears.
Says the guy who's not strapping in.
Yeah.
That's all right. Lloyd Ruby and Mario and, you know, the grass cutters, I mean, it was another groove, and if your car got in trouble, that was a place to go. It's part of the racetrack. It was awesome, and it really helped the NASCAR race.
Oh, the NASCAR race, yeah, won't argue with you one bit.
But no, all that angle stuff, no. Sorry. When they finally moved the driver's feet back behind the wheels, that helped too.
Well, no, but I think if you look at tracks that are super wide and where the drivers are, you know, very far away from the wall, like at Texas Motor Speedway, you loop it in turn one, chances are the angle of attack that you hit is a bit more vicious than you see here. It's usually a bit more kind of shallow here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but from a racing perspective, I can't argue with you that would probably be a whole new level again.
Oh, yeah. Well, they talked about it, and they just kind of abandoned it, but I just think it just adds more to the race. It really does. This guy's taking a refresher test at 240.
To clarify, he isn't actually doing 240.
No.
He has done a 221.4, unassisted by a tow, so again, pulling further away from everyone else in the Chevy train today here, so 2/10 of a mile an hour quicker than the second fastest Chevy in no tow.
So let's live in fantasy land here, Robin. What if
That's where he always lives.
Sure, and I'll join. What if Elio Castroneves won the Indianapolis 500?
I think
he still wants to be a full-time IndyCar driver. Now, that's not dismissing sports cars. He loves the Acura IMSA WeatherTech car that he's driving, and that's cool, and it's a great job. But he thinks of himself, for good reason, as an IndyCar driver, and now he wouldn't take a job with anybody else. He wants to drive with Roger Penske because he's smart. If he were to win the Indianapolis 500, is there a chance?
Sure, he'd petition Roger. I mean, he'd be on Roger's doorstep the next day saying, okay, let's go. I mean, you think about his last full-time year. He won a couple poles. He was in the Fast Six I mean, he didn't lose anything.
He wasn't
as
good as he's ever been.
Absolutely. He was not slowing down at all.
No,
it's just that RP wanted a couple of big names for the sports car program, so him and Montoya got the call.
I also feel like his pace never diminished, but I think his ability to save fuel wasn't quite as good as that of his teammates, and I think as a result his race results weren't as good as the pace was. So from my perspective, it's one of those things where, yeah, you can definitely win the pole, you can definitely continue to win the 500s, but I didn't necessarily see another championship in him because of kind of the inability to save as much fuel as his teammates did.
It was really a remarkable, though, second act for Elio Castroneves. So he came back and won the 500 for the third time in 2009, and then there was a downturn where he I'd have to look it up, but one year he finished 9th, 10th, 11th in points, something like that. And the question was, has Helio Castroneves lost it? Well, Will Power was one thing that helped him. Will Power coming into the team, learned some things from Will, forced Helio to raise his game, and he had a brilliant second act of another 5 or 6 years contending consistently for championships. Ultimately never got there, but he was always in the hunt.
And I tell you, the best Indy 500 he ever drove was 2017 when he avoided a flying Scott Dixon through the air, goes airborne himself, breaks the bell housing of the car, so essentially the car is just a big swivel in the middle of the car, and goes on to finish second in the race. I still think that is the best performance I've ever seen from him at the Indy 500, and with the advantage the Honda had that year and the fact that he was that close to winning it, I think that's got to be the best performance he's ever done there.
And good to see the papaya orange McLaren back out with Fernando Alonso. This is run number 3 of the day officially. The first one went a quarter of a lap. The second one went 2 laps. Now let's see if the early issues, which again are to be expected with a new car and a new program. This is a test, by the way. This is not an official practice. If it's sorted, Alonso can begin sorting out the car.
And the guy immediately following him, I think that's Marcus Ericsson already on the stage 3 of his rookie orientation. His last lap at 2:19.237. So Mark is really, really picking up the pace there as well and feeling comfortable.
Ericsson, Herta, and Ferrucci all have completed phase number 2. So they are cleared to run at speed, which is what we speculated, or at least hope for Colton Herta's standpoint, because he's the fastest so far in this session, 2:22.6. So I think we still need Felix Rosenqvist to pass the second phase. And then all of the rookies that are participating today will have that done. Alonso, 2:11.318, and that's in the frame of speed where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So don't read anything if he pulls off consecutive laps below 2:15. That's what he's required to do right now.
And 2:10 to 2:15, and then they'll let him loose to do 2:15 to 2:20, and then he's good to go as quickly as he wants.
Just got a text from Parnelli Jones and Jimmy Delamarter. They're listening, they're enjoying it. And Rufus will be here for the Indy 500 next month with Uncle Bobby, and they'll be holding court in the media center on the 4th floor for probably, 4 or 5 days.
Fantastic. Always great to have the legends joining us. One of my favorite evenings was when Parnelli joined us in studio for the radio show and challenged me to push-ups, and I declined because I didn't want to lose.
No. Rufus, if anybody ever shakes their fist at him on the 405, I hope they have a golf club or their arm, because he'll disarm them and beat them to death. I mean, he's still tough, and world's nicest guy, probably the most humble Indy 500 winner of all time. Whenever we go out to dinner and somebody asks for his autograph, he goes, I can't believe anybody knows who I am, let alone wants my autograph. I said, Parnelli, you're one of the 5 greatest race drivers of all time, and you mean a lot to people. So that's what's cool about him and Uncle Bobby and Rutherford and Mario and Voigt and John Cock when they come back to Indianapolis, because people revere them because of what they did in their career. And it left a lasting impression on guys like me, because I got to watch them, I got to cover them, and I got to be friends with them. So you can't top that. Look at old Alonso here getting racing.
Well, look at Marcus Ericsson passing the 2-time Formula One world champion. So I'm sure they mixed it up on the Formula One tracks over the last few years in the World Championship. But our European audience is taking notice of Marcus Ericsson and Fernando Alonso together at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. By the way, Colton Herta is back on track and just posted a 2:23.327.
Whew, look at that. That is with a little bit of assist here from old Fernando Alonso, so he's quickly going to try and reel these two in and leave them in his dust. But Marcus Ericsson there dipped below the speed that he needs to be in for that stage 3, so it's going to take him a few more laps here to get that complete, and then he can go. So it took him a couple of laps to figure out the dirty air with Fernando Alonso, but now he's kind of set sail as well.
And Colton Herta put up a 2:21.1 a little while ago by himself, so that's noticeable. That's in range. And Colton Herta, 226.1 miles per hour.
And by the way, that's a 19-year-old.
Barely?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
How do you like that?
Do you think he's comfortable?
Well, you guys have to think about it. You know, in the old AJ Foyt got a ride when he was 23 or 24 at Indy, and that was unheard of. He used to have to be almost 30 years old, like Uncle Bobby was, to get a chance. Parnelli, I think, was 25 or 26. And now these kids, Alonso Jr., when he led Riverside when he was 20 years old, and we were like, who is this guy? This is unheard of. He's a 20-year-old leading an IndyCar race. So he was really the first guy that probably got our attention when being a kid.
Yeah. And Colton, again, if you look at his line, so similar to what we've seen from Alexander Rossi today, dipping well below that white line, gets that clean air on the wings, and look at how easy it is for him to suck up on Marcus Ericsson here. Just makes that done so easily, and even just driving by himself, that line is ultra aggressive and smooth. Very nice.
A 226.1 followed up by a 225.9. Pardon me, coming through here is 19-year-old Colton Herta for the first time in an IndyCar at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
And then even spending that little bit of time behind Marcus Ericsson there backs that up with a 222.3, and Marcus probably needs to kind of control his excitement here because he doesn't want to go too quick to bounce himself out of this stage 3 of the rookie orientation. So he's going to take the pit lane and see if we'll get word here shortly if he's completed his rookie orientation and can let it rip from here.
I think in the third phase it's just above 215, so you're somewhat unencumbered there because he has completed phase number 2.
Like Anders said, though, you at least have the advantage of it tells you on your screen.
Yeah.
You can tell. In the old days, in the roadster days, of the first rear engine cars, had no idea. They looked at the pit board.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the tach. Maybe the tachometer. You know.
Alonso another 212.8 lap. That's within range. He's completed 13 laps now, so getting closer to where he is officially let loose.
I think he was good with our nickname for the month of May. Fred. Fast Freddy. You know, he was like, yeah, okay, I don't care. So I'm going to make some decals up. We'll put one on his car when he comes back.
When are you taking him to the Mug and Bun?
No, we're going to take him to the working man's friend, buddy.
Okay.
Double cheeseburger. Look out.
I will pay money to see
When's
that.
the last time you think he had a double cheeseburger?
Never. Never. But Steve Shunk introduced him to Long's Donuts this morning. I'm not sure he had one, but you know, you gotta. He's an Indy guy now. We gotta have Fast Freddy. He's got to eat. He's got to eat the working man's friend. He's got to go to Charlie Brown's for breakfast. The Team McLaren boys went to Charlie Brown's for breakfast today. That opened their eyes because AJ eats every meal there.
Well, Robin, we officially have 2 requests on Twitter for you to join the Twitterverse. One is from Baden Stewart saying, "Why isn't Robin on Twitter yet? The people want to see him." And him and Dave Despain can go back and forth on here. And then James Balch says, "What will it take for Robin to join Twitter? He's a man of the people, and an old dog can learn new tricks."
Tell him that's very nice, but I've lost enough jobs, and all Twitter does is get you fired or beat up. And I just assume I can live through you and Kevin. You guys do a fine job on Twitter, and it's I don't know. I just don't think that's ever going to happen. Speed used to say, "Oh, you need to get a Twitter account." No, I don't. We don't need a Twitter account.
So hashtag Robin Miller it is.
That's right. Tim Clausen just checked in, said he's been listening and enjoying it, working on his sprint car and his midget, getting their IndyCar ready.
So what I don't know, and thank you, it's good to hear from you, Tim. I really enjoyed visiting with Tim at the announcement for their program. It's a great story. At the time, it was talked about that they would have an alliance with an IndyCar team, and there were reports about AJ Foyt racing. I don't know, or I've not heard if that was ever finalized.
That's a good question. I think maybe they helped him get an engine with Chevrolet. I think AJ might have helped them Tim's team get an engine. But you know, when you put a team together from scratch like this, I mean, Clausen Marshall is one of the best open wheel teams in North America. Sprints and midgets and dirt cars. I mean, they win a lot. They win everything. But this is a whole new deal, and you got to have 1 or 2 really good people, just like McLaren went and got Andy Brown because he has all that experience winning races on ovals and being around IndyCar. So it'll be interesting to see who their engineer is.
Now, Tim did tell me while all of these people working on a short track program are brilliant, smart people, he's not relying on them to lead this effort. He's getting IndyCar veteran engineers, mechanics, people that are familiar with this side of racing. I'm sure there will be people from his program on the short track program that are involved, but they'll be pushed forward by people with IndyCar experience.
Right. You got to have. You just can't.
Yeah. it's a fantastic story, and it's one of the little guys. And if you want somebody to root for, because as we said earlier, you know, if you were forced to pick someone when you're talking about 3 cars not making it, logic just says, well, you're going to take this new team that's never done an IndyCar race. That's going to be one on the outside looking in. So if I'm looking at it from the team standpoint, I'm going to celebrate even more if we make this race, because this is what no one thinks we can do right now. And if you do, that in some ways, we can't duplicate the old days, but that would remind me of the old days when somebody puts the program together in their garage, I mean their little garage outside their house, and comes to Indy and puts it in the show.
Yep.
It's not quite the same, but it's as close as we're going to get to.
No, they make the race, it'll be like winning it. It will,
Yeah.
It really will be. And you know, they've got so much racing savvy. You know, his team does. It's just, this is a different kind of racing savvy.
A couple of Spaniards there together, Fernando Alonso and Oriol Servia.
And Oriol Servia has really picked up the pace here on the last couple of laps. The 222.7 here in chasing down Fernando Alonso. So getting up to speed here in the 77 Aero Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports car. And they're coming up to a guy that's done a lap or two around here. Elio Castroneves, as Oriol Servia is going to take the pit lane.
So Alonso has completed 19 laps now, top speed 2:14.333. He is likely within range or close to it of doing the 10 plus between 2:10 and 2:15. He remains on track. Let's watch Castroneves behind him in that bright yellow Pennzoil car work his way up to speed.
Kind of as we've done with all the other drivers, starting to pay attention to the lines here. Fernando, you can see he's already comfortable going below the white line, so he clearly feels comfortable in this car, and be interesting to see if he carries that on here as he spools it up to speed.
Colton Herta has completed all phases of rookie orientation, and he's P1 in this session, 2:26.108. Where would that stand overall in the day? That would still be good enough for 5th quick with all drivers.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Toe or no toe, that's very, very impressive to offload like that. And again, shows what we were talking about with the fact that Andretti Autosport and their damper program hooked up yet again.
How about this? He's faster than the actual Andretti Autosport driver. So the Andretti Technologies supported driver is faster than the team cars.
Well, let's see how fast this is no-toe speed at 2:22.1. What was the fastest no-toe speed for other Andretti Autosport cars?
I don't think I just took a screen grab of timing and scoring. It's not there. Maybe someone else can.
Come on, Kevin.
But that column is cut off. Looks Hunter Ray was at 2:21.3. Rossi was at 2:20.9. So Hunter Ray is still slightly quicker on this side.
But you also have to assume that the conditions now are better than they were for the veterans, because it's slightly colder air, slightly more dense, a bit more rubber down on track. So probably slightly better conditions. But still, to do a 2:22.1, your very first time around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in an IndyCar, yeah, that's mighty impressive.
That is very impressive.
Alonso peeling off. He has completed 22 laps. Top speed 2:14.333. Last time by at 2:13.0. Castroneves last time by, his fastest 2:25.565. That's second overall in this session. Oriol Servia did a 2:22.7.
And unassisted there, Elio Castroneves does a 2:22.3. So by far and away the fastest Chevy on the day in the no-toe speed. He just has a feel for this place, doesn't he?
Yeah,
It's just unreal to watch him.
and he hated it the first time he drove around here. And Tim Cindric, he said, "What's the big deal about this place? I don't, you know, why do we have to spend all month here?" Blah blah. It kind of changed his tune a couple years later, but again,
A couple of weeks later, he won it that year.
And Dario didn't like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and now he worships it. I mean, it became part of his life. I mean, it has an effect on everybody. It's different ways. If you grow up around it, then it's the mecca. If you didn't, you're like, okay, well, I'll try this. This might be fun.
We are pushing 7 o'clock. 8 hours into our web stream today, and still going strong. We are going to see race cars, and it's not the first time. Things have changed. It used to be the hard 6 o'clock gun, but circumstances with rain on qualifying days. I think we've qualified past 7 o'clock a a few times. Now, Donald Davidson could tell us at times way back in the day where I think they would practice until dark, and that would change throughout the month of May depending on when sunset was.
Well, they qualified in 1968. There's a picture of Bill Puterbaugh, the late Bill Puterbaugh, sitting in his car, and they gave him the option of going out now, and the lightest thing on the track were the lights on the tower. It was that dark.
Wow.
And I think he went out, and then the next day they had another round of qualifying. And my hero Jim Hurtubise made it in the last roadster that ever made it, but it was dark, and they were still trying to qualify. Hey, David Turner from New Zealand is listening and says, "Keep up the good work, fellas, and bring back the apron." See, there's a guy after my own heart.
The old Kiwis.
And the Gurney families, Alex and, excuse me, my gosh, I can't talk. Alex and Justin Gurney are listening and watching, and they're having a good time.
Cool.
And I asked them, I said, "Hey, fellas," I said, "are we going to see an AAR Eagle? Are we going to see an AAR entry in the Indy 500 again?" They said, "Not if we have to buy a Delara, but guess what? They let us build an Eagle, we may be back." Which would be awesome. And they love the fact that Hildebrand's running the 48.
Yeah, that is cool. Felix Rosenquist, look at this. 2:21.084, his fastest time so far. So does that mean he's completed all 3 stages then?
I've not been notified of that, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think he's getting there. Connor Daly back out on track. 2:20.8 last time. 2:21.5 fastest for Connor Daly. With Andretti Autosport, with U.S. Air Force backing for the second year, but this time it's with Andretti getting set to try to qualify for his 6th Indianapolis 500. And still just 26 years old. Is my math right?
Connor, is he that young?
27.
Hey, his head's not jumping around anymore.
Oh, good point.
No, you watch, Anders. I don't think it is.
Let's have a look at this.
I don't think it is.
Let's get a close shot.
Of course, I thought Pato O'Ward was in a car this morning. So what the hell do I know?
All right, so let's see here. Have they added any sort of wickers onto his helmet? There's still a little bit of movement, but definitely definitely doesn't appear to be as aggressive as it was. So they would have done one of 2 things. They would have either added a wicker to the top of his helmet, or they would have extended the windscreen that sits in front of the cockpit just ever so slightly to let the air go across his helmet a bit better. Well, now that we say that, there is still actually a lot of movement on that helmet, isn't there?
Disregard what I said.
Yeah. Thanks, Robin.
Yep, but again, he ain't coming in.
Yeah,
I'm staying out until you
no.
make me come in. By the way, Felix Rosenquist has completed rookie orientation. He's done with all 3 phases, joining Colton Herta.
I tell you what, though, this thing, the helmet buffeting there is jarring, because basically you can't read the numbers on your dash. You struggle to see the turn-in points. It can be such a violent buffeting here, so definitely something that he's going to want to have addressed before too long. That's not a nice feeling right there.
So, Anders, can they put anything? It's got to be from the helmet. It can't be from the cowl.
Look at that.
No, that's crazy.
awful.
I mean, honestly, the easiest solution to that is to pull the Elio Castroneves. Have you ever noticed how much helmet padding he runs in the headrest? Basically, his helmet is completely locked into the headrest to the point where his helmet can't move around at all. And I always preferred on the ovals to drive with the helmet essentially fully locked in, because it meant there was 0 movement. You could just kind of keep your head in one place. You have your spotters to kind of look around you, so you don't need to do that movement. So that would probably be the easiest thing for Connor here, is to put that in, and then once he gets to the end of the day here today, take it back to the Bell Tech Center here in the infield and put an extra big wicker on. And the wickers that you can get on top of the helmets here, they come in different sizes now and shapes, so he can experiment with a couple of different ones, but he's definitely going to have to go up a size here just to, again, kind of get a bit more of a high pressure on the top of his helmet to push that down and to eliminate that buffeting.
See if we notice the difference here, just watching directly with Marcus Ericsson back on track. When we see a straight-on shot of him, how much more stable his head in the cockpit.
Much more stable, but you also see he has a lot more padding on the right-hand side of his helmet, he has a lot more padding on his helmet, so I think that helps. And he sits also a bit lower than Connor Daly.
Dad, look. So, but Anders, is this because it's his first time in the and you know, maybe they just haven't got the cockpit where they want it
Well,
yet,
I think he would have almost certainly made a new seat for this car. And every time you make a new seat, you sit slightly differently than you did in the previous one. And to me, unless my eye, deceives me, it looks like he's sitting a little bit higher than I've seen him in the car before. So it could just be that extra half inch that he sits higher. That could be enough for the air just to get the lower portion of his helmet that essentially pulls up on the helmet. And the sensation of that is your chin strap, it goes all the way up against your throat, and it feels like your helmet wants to get pulled off. So not a nice sensation by any means.
No. Good to see J.R. Hildebrand back on track after the mechanical and he's slowed to a stop a little while ago. He's chasing Marcus Ericsson on track right now. This will be the 9th Indianapolis 500 for J.R. Hildebrand. And we always qualify that and say if you qualify, because there have been a couple of years where it was pretty much if you show up, you know you're in. This is not one of those years.
No. And just how does his life change?
Oh yeah, look at this.
Yes.
So there they are. Now they're going to affix a slightly bigger windscreen here to the front of the cockpit of Connor Daly. So it was to the point here for him where it was unbearable. So hopefully our camera can get a better perspective. And as you can see, they're undoing the bolts at the front of the tub. They're going to affix one of these clear little strips, and that can be enough, just an inch or so protruding from the top of the tub. There you have. Going on, and that can make all the difference in the world. And I never drove I'm a taller guy. I never drove an open wheel car without one of these windshields, because the buffeting I would have on my helmet was absolutely terrible.
So he had nothing?
He had nothing, and which is kind of surprising to me. I don't know if from an aero perspective they try and run without it, but I wouldn't think that would have a big impact, because you're at an area of the car where the air gets so disturbed anyway around the helmet that it shouldn't affect anything at all. So anyway, glad that they're fixing it. That's good. That can't have been very comfortable for Connor Daly.
You picked up on that an hour ago, and we were like, holy cow. Kevin, what time are you going to pick up your daughter?
I've made other arrangements. I needed to pick her up right now. So Grandma has been called into action. We were scheduled to finish at 6 o'clock. So if you see a 14-year-old standing out by the side of the road at the University of Indianapolis, outside the pool, take her to Avon.
Take her to Avon. You'll give him some gas money.
Ooh, that's a bit of a late dive to the inside there for J.R. Hildebrand. Don't want to be risking it that early, so going to think better of it and back off and go for another run.
So look what he lost by just... Would he breathe it just a little bit?
Oh yeah,
the corner, and look what he lost.
It'll be big, because you get such a shallow angle of attack to the corner when you have to lift off like that, and then you, in addition to that, you lose the aero on your front wing, so makes it very, very difficult. Santino though is impressing me, man. You just kind of look at everything he's doing inside the cockpit. It doesn't look rushed. He's not taking any risks. I'm genuinely impressed here. The line, he uses the full arc going into the corner. Very, very good.
They were good in that second car. The team was at getting Zachary Clayman DeMello, now known as Zachary Clayman, and still driving in Indy Lights, back in Indy Lights where he's won a race this year. But he was in that car, not expected to be. So remember, the second car last year was meant for Pietro Fittipaldi. He had the sports car crash and the significant injuries, so that allowed Zachary Clayman DeMello to get in the car, and he did a nice job all month with Michael Cannon in that car.
And Pancho Carter, who was a hell of a race driver in his day, was his spotter, and he told me, he says, this kid looks as good naturally going through turn 1 at Indianapolis as anybody I've seen in 20 years. He said he's got this wonderful line, and he looked. So I think obviously Michael Cannon is part of the equation both times. He's a great guy to have as an engineer, but I think both these kids did a good job.
Their cars are set up well. We remember what they've done in previous years, not only with Bourdais, in the year that Bourdais was injured, James Davison got in the car, and it wasn't a fully prepared Indianapolis 500 car, and still raced it to the front at one point.
And I think the impressive thing that they did is with J.R. Hildebrand this time almost certainly going to be able to make the move stick here on Santino Ferrucci, and it's still staying away.
Oh,
We're talking practice here.
boys,
That's still
7 o'clock at night. This pays nothing.
That still took some commitment there for J.R. Hildebrand to pull off.
And Ferrucci never backed off.
He's staying in it.
Oh, yeah.
Never backed
I
off.
think a race is going to break off. Ferrucci's coming back at him.
Oh, so now the question is, how close can he stay here through turn 3 and turn 4 to try and get that run? So he's got to get super low here in turn 4 to avoid the arrow wake of J.R. Hildebrand. So he actually gets a really nice exit. Look at
Him
this.
smoking off a 4.
Oh, this is great.
Here we go, boys. Into the 7 o'clock hour. This is happy hour at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. No opportunity there for Ferrucci, but the young bull is not ready to give it up yet.
Nope.
Cracking little scrap here at the end of the day. Man.
By the way, there's still almost 40 minutes remaining in this session, according to timing and scoring.
So there, Santino thought better of it and actually backed off a little bit. So he probably wants to stay in that dirty air of J.R. Hildebrand to learn as much as he can. But the run he gets off the corners is just phenomenal. All the way down to the low side. Almost like a rocket off the corner.
That thing comes off the corner so good.
Here comes Ferrucci, the 20-year-old from Connecticut. Down to the bottom side, Hildebrand will probably concede that one pretty easily this time.
And he did the one thing that I was taught very, very early by Larry Nash, my crew chief, my first time driving as an oval. You always want to time your run so that you get by him before the line. And that's exactly what he was able to do there. He timed the run so that he got the drive, popped out, and got him by the line. And that's exactly what we want to try and do around here when you have the run on someone.
Kevin, you think there's going to have the all skate from 7:30 to 8? For everybody, you think?
According to timing and scoring, there's still 37 minutes remaining. They had a little delay and got I got to believe they feel like we're good.
That's it. Yeah.
I think more has been accomplished today than we realistically expected by the time we showed up this morning, and it was sprinkling. So I think this has been a very productive day.
And then
I could be wrong, but you know, if we're talking 40 minutes from now,
yeah, they're not going to turn by this for 15.
it's in different conditions that you're ever going to see. It's getting close to getting dark. I would call it mission accomplished at this point, and I have just been informed that there will be no more all skate, so this will be the end of the session, and I think that makes perfect sense. A lot has been done.
Right. Yeah, I actually think that's for the better of everyone, because I think that would have been an absolutely crazy session. It would have been 15 minutes, 28 cars out there. It would have been madness. So I think that is absolutely the right decision.
Don't need to pile anybody up.
No.
Plus, most restaurants stay open till 9. We might get to have dinner.
Good point.
Kevin had pizza.
I think I'm heading over to wait in the queue to talk to Fernando Alonso for tomorrow's NASCAR America Motorsports Hour.
Is that
That's the plan.
Will that be on at the 4th floor, Kevin?
On,
For Fernando, the queue to talk to him, or is it going
I think he's going to do
out of the car?
a press conference. The original plan was a press conference with Alonso and I think the top 3 as well, and that should be streamed as well on IndyCar.com. We're going to let you and Anders host that.
Okay.
Actually, I think we'll sign off, but the stream will stay on, and they'll take it over from the media center, and then I'm scheduled to talk with Fernando. And by the way, motorsports fans have for many years, as Alonso is back out on track at 218.69 miles per hour, so his fastest lap. Motorsports fans have been asking for many, many years, especially since Speed TV went away, for more all-encompassing motorsports television programs. You need to check out NBCSN on Thursdays. So it's AJ Allmendinger, usually in studio, usually someone else with him, like a Parker Kligerman, who is very versed in open-wheel racing and sports car racing. Marty Snyder or Chris Devoda, someone as the host, and they spend a good 7 or 8 minutes each on IndyCar, IMSA, Supercross, NASCAR, obviously, but it is a full-fledged interview show. Will Power did Dale Jr.'s podcast.
Did he?
That hasn't aired yet on television. I'm hoping it airs sometime soon, but it's really good too.
I think it must have just aired, because I've seen a few tweets referring to the fact that they heard it.
The podcast has been up, but it hasn't aired on television. For some reason, it didn't air. It was originally a radio show, a podcast, and then he said, hey, this is pretty good. We need to put some cameras in here. And it is fascinating stuff, and it's more than just NASCAR. He branches out a little bit. I'm a big Dale Jr. fan. I love his enthusiasm. You know, personally, I just like the way he handled himself when he had so many people wanting a piece of him, just from what little I've covered NASCAR. And here at the Brickyard 400, he was always accommodating, and I like people who were nice and accommodating as athletes who then join the media. I'm not a big fan of the athletes who won't talk to the media and then become the media.
You mean Sterling Sharp? Oh, no.
Exactly.
No.
And Dale Jr., as we see the yellow come out, and what is it for?
Well, I saw hands up there from one of the marshals, so maybe some precipitation back in the air?
We'll wait and see. But Jr. has fantastic enthusiasm. He is a fan of this event. For those that have asked, Junior's not in the booth. He's not calling the race. It's still the normal crew of Lee Diffie, Paul Tracy, and Townsend Bell. But NBC is going all out, and there's going to be the Peacock Pit Box for commentary with Mike Tirico, basically the lead voice on NBC Sports, Dale Jr., Danica Patrick.
Yep.
We're going all out of this. This is going to be treated like the Super Bowl, and as much perspective as you can get is a good thing.
Kevin, he came to the midget race last year with Dale Burton and Dale Blaney, and he had a great time. He's just a student. He's a fan of racing, and he likes open wheel racing. And his podcast, the numbers that he gets, the number of people that watch his podcast is staggering.
By the way, this is just for debris. It's not raining just for debris. Please continue.
No. But I'm just saying, there aren't many people in this country that can move the needle. Tiger Woods, Dale Jr. I mean, I'm not sure who the third one is. Maybe LeBron, but there's very few people that can make people go, oh. And when they said that Dale Jr. was going to come to Indy, I was like, fabulous. Because he's a fan. He was a Gordon Johncock fan growing up. And he loves he can't wait to get to the Indy 500. And if I was the Speedway, I'd have him drive the pace car and have him be wired to our booth guys on the pace lap and say, hey, I'm pacing the Indy 500. How cool is this? You know, because I tell you what, his enthusiasm is going to ring true the whole race.
He worked with us on the Rolex 24 at IMSA, and it was fantastic. Just to listen to his inquisitive nature. He didn't pretend to be an expert about sports car racing, but he knows more than you would think he knows. And he asked the right questions.
Yes.
And most of the people watching at home don't know all the answers, so he's asking the questions that a lot of us have.
Just such a likable guy, and always has been. When I was working at Speed, Wind Tunnel sent me to do a lap around Charlotte in a real stock car with Dale Jr., and I'd never met him before, and we shook hands, and we hung out for about 15 or 20 minutes. We got in the car, and so I'm in the right front seat, and I said, now, Dale Jr., I said, what lap do you suppose the right front's going to blow and we're going to hit the wall? He goes, I don't know, but it's going to hurt you a lot worse than it's going to hurt me. But I like his sense of humor, and I just like him as a person.
So a brief yellow here for debris, and there still is over a half hour remaining, conditions permitting, for this rookie orientation session. Colton Herta, the fastest, good enough for fifth fastest overall. In the veterans session, Takuma Sato is just shy of 227 miles per hour. Castroneves, Servia, Rosenquist, and Daly, 9 in this session, including Fernando Alonso. A mechanical on his outlap coasted to a stop at the exit of the warm-up lane, had to have a tow in, and now has passed the phase 1 of the refresher test, which limits him to 215 miles per hour. And before the yellow, just did a lap at 218.6, so we'll see a little more of what Alonso and McLaren have here in the next few moments.
And I think it'll be great now that everyone's going to put some new tires on. You see those already fitted to the car of Fernando Alonso. Everyone basically can go unrestricted to the end of this session, so that'll be great news. And even though it is getting darker outside, as every degree drops here with temperature, it's actually going to make these cars go faster and faster, because the track temp is going to stay roughly the same here. The asphalt maintains its temperature very well, and as the air drops here, that only increases the downforce, increases the horsepower, and should make for some really big lap times here at the end of the day. So Colton Herta, we may very well see a time faster than the 226.1 at this point.
Why is this?
What if Herta tops 227? The teenager is the fastest on the day.
It would be pretty nuts, wouldn't it?
That'd be cool.
Be great.
Yeah.
You know.
And that story, when he won at Circuit of the Americas, gave IndyCar a lot of nationwide attention. Twofold. The story of him and the story of young George Steinbrenner IV as a car owner winning a race.
They got big headlines in New York City, and that's, you know, that's a stick and ball town. They don't care about racing. So that's exactly what it's going to take. It's going to take Colton, Pato, and Felix and all these kids, and then, you know, Dixon Rossi and RHR and the boys, Newgarden. I mean, it's this great balance, this great blend of talent.
We know worldwide the attention is predominantly on Fernando Alonso. What's the biggest story? What's the biggest winner? What gathers the most headlines in the United States from a winning standpoint?
That's a really good question.
Easy.
Marco Andretti.
Marco Andretti.
Andretti winning, especially on the 50th anniversary of Mario's.
U.S. as a whole?
I'm saying U.S. That's why it's not Fernando.
Yeah, exactly. U.S. Marco Andretti, Indiana, Ed Carpenter.
Right.
I think Helio Castroneves, in any sense, is a
Yep.
four-time winner, and
Yep.
with his popularity from Dancing with the Stars, gathers a great deal of headlines. Colton Herta, a 19-year-old, that's a
Yep.
hook.
If Marco and Graham Rahal take the white flag side by side, that's what we want. I mean, that.